I don't usually do this, but I just wanted to come on here like choice and start spitting things about my life. So I decided why not to just do it on this channel. I'm gonna be telling you a story, a middle school story, a seventh grade classic. This one's up there with Aesop's Fables. So it all started when I was in seventh grade. I went to a new school, new middle school, new people, new environment. There's a whole lot of things here. I was just opening Pandora's box. My hairs were starting to grow out on my dingaling, and things were starting to look pretty good for me. And when I was in seventh grade, I used to think that I was like a superhero of some sorts, but of course I wasn't. But keep that in mind, keep that in your back pocket, and save it for trivia night because that one might be coming up in the future. But it all started when I walk into my first class of seventh grade ever, and it was math. When I sit down, I sit right in front of probably the most beautiful girl that I had seen up until this moment. She was like, very, 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 very good looking, and I was automatically just instantly just attracted to this person. But to me at the time, my seventh grade little self, my childish mind, I thought that she was an eighth grader. I figured that no eighth grader would want to hang out with some puny little milk drinking, stinky little seventh grader, right? Non deodorant wearing seventh grader like me. And so back in the day, I just didn't talk to her. I sat in front of her for every day in the first quarter of probably the first quarter of seventh grade without even speaking a word. Like the true Giga Chad that I was, I didn't speak a word. And if I made eye contact, I would break it immediately because I didn't know how to keep eye contact. I really just, the fear instilled in me was always there, and making eye contact with girls just intimidated me completely. And then time goes on, and in the next few periods, I noticed that she's actually in my fourth period history. And so I was like, whoa, this is very interesting now. Now that she's in two of my classes, there is an opportune chance. But at the time, I still thought that she was an eighth grader. And for some, whatever reason, I thought that she was an eighth grader. And so I could not talk to her. I thought that she was way beyond me. She was like a god among mortals. And I was just a puny little seventh grader who couldn't talk to anybody. And then the next period comes around, and I notice that she's still there in my next period, which is ridiculous because maybe the universe is giving me a sign that I need to go and talk to this eighth grader. Many, 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 many weeks go by. I still haven't talked to this person. We're in the same classes. We're in like four of the same classes in my seventh grade year, and so at the around maybe like the halfway point of the year, I start to talk to her just a little bit, only because there were other people at my table who were talking to her, and so they just happened to reel me in at some point, and I just started to naturally become closer and closer to their group. It wasn't like I just walked up there like a Giga Chad and just started talking on my own, like, "Hey, girl, how you doing?" No, no, no. It wasn't like that. It was more of like a, I'm Jeff. What's your name? And it was very awkward at first. I remember like knowing in my mind that I had a crush on this girl, but I didn't really know how to act on it because I figured that once again, I figured she was an eighth grader who wouldn't want to talk to a seventh grader like me. But later on in the year, after talking to her over time, I found out that she was actually a seventh grader. We were the same level. We were on the same level of intelligence here. After that realization, I was like, you know what? I could talk to this girl. I could man up, grow some hairs on my dingaling, and go talk to this girl. So I start manning up. I start, imagining in my head stupid scenarios like saving the school from a school shooter, perhaps, probably gaining superpowers like a fireball or like electromagnetism or something along the lines of that. And I figured if I could show her that I was a true man with hairs on my chest and no longer a milk drinking individual, I could probably sway her towards me. We started getting a little closer. Every single day we talked a little bit, in our group. So it wasn't just me and her, but it was, two other people as well. Another girl, another guy. We were just getting along. I would play Clash Royale on my phone every single day. And now let me give you a piece of information here. You can also save this for trivia night. I got my first phone when I was in seventh grade. So it was during this year, like over halfway through the year, I got my first phone. At the time, a lot of kids in my grade didn't have their first phone yet. Surprisingly enough, nowadays kids are born out of the womb carrying like an iPad, but back then we had to work for it a little bit more. We had to beg for it a little bit more, and so that was when I got my first phone. Now, I would just sit there during this one period where it's like kind of like a free period. where you could just study or talk or whatever. So I would just go on my phone, play Clash Royale while also conversating with the people at my table, including the girl that I had a crush on. And so we would continue talking, and I would get to know her more and more. And then eventually, fast forward to the end of the year, it was like the second to last day of the year. And so the middle school, they're playing Coco, I think it's like a Disney film called Coco about like the guy who goes back into like the spirit world to like, I don't know, fuck some skeletons or some shit. I'm not really sure. And I remember sitting there in math class and they were playing this movie up on the screen. And so I look back behind me and she's right there sitting by herself. Now, this was because the desks had changed throughout the years, and so from where it was at the beginning, where I was sitting directly in front of her, it was no longer like that. I was now sitting at the front of the room, and she was sitting like a little bit closer to the back. So I looked behind me and I noticed that she's sitting by herself today. So I was like, maybe my milk drinking days are over. I need to man up and become one of my own. So I got up and I stood up like a strong big man, like the big man that I am. I started to walk back there with huge swagger, swaying my hips back and forth like hips don't lie. And then I sit down right next to her and I start talking a little. I start maybe saying a couple of jokes like funny movie, isn't it? And she's giggling a little bit like a second grader at recess. I started to whip out my elementary school flirtatiousness at this point because I used to be the biggest Chad in elementary school. That was when I peaked. I peaked in elementary school, I won't lie. And so I take out my elementary school flirting handbook and I start taking pieces of advice that I remember from back then. And I start making jokes throughout the entire movie. And she was laughing along, giggling at everything I said. And to me, I was in heaven. I was in second grade heaven right now. Like that was my dream as a second grader, was to be a seventh grader and to be able to have this dry sense of humor that I had back then and just make jokes. And she was laughing and things of that nature. And so after the class ended, we went our separate ways. I still had a crush on this girl. I didn't know if she liked me back, so I just kind of, let it be. But the next day was the last day of school, and I knew that I wasn't going to be there because I had to go to my grandma's funeral. So I had to make a quick plan. I had to think off the top of my head, think off the dome, and make a quick decision faster than Barry Allen in The Flash. So I knew that she rode the bus every day after school. And so after school that day, I went and tried to find her. And by some absolute miracle, I did actually find her. And I started talking to her. I was like, hey, I was kind of shaking back and forth, in my little shoes or whatever shoes that I wore back then, probably like Skechers light up shoes or something back then. And so I started talking to her, and I'm like, hey, you know, tomorrow I'm not gonna be here, so today's my last day of school, and I just wanted to say, say bye, see you next summer, or see you next year, have a great summer, things like that. And so she's like, oh yeah, bye. Yeah, it was nice knowing you. Like, as if like I was gonna pass away or something. I was gonna see her next year. I'm like, okay, yeah, it was a nice, you know, nice having class with you this year and things of that nature. And then she starts, walking away. After we say our goodbyes and stuff like that, she starts walking to her bus. And so I'm like standing there. It was kind of like a romantic movie in my mind. In that moment, it was like the most romantic movie, the most romantic drama possible. But in reality, it was just two awkward seventh graders just like talking to each other. And so right before she gets to her bus, she like turns around and comes back, and she's like, "Wait, do you have a phone number?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And at this moment, I was like, "Holy shit, something is going on," right? But I had no idea what to do in that moment. I didn't really want to offer it or anything, so I just made her kind of ask for it. And so she asked me like, "What's your phone number?" And so like the idiot that I was, I just kind of spoke it to her. I didn't really like write it down on a piece of paper or anything like that. I could have written it on a sticky note and then gave it to her, but my puny little brain just didn't think of that in the moment. And so I just started reciting it like a speech. I was just started spitting out the numbers, like reciting the digits of pi, and so just expected her to memorize it or something. And so, she was like, okay. And then there she goes back onto the bus. And I was like, wait, did I blow it? Should I have written it down on a piece of paper and given it to her instead of just reciting it and hoping that she memorizes it? And so I start absolutely panicking. I'm absolutely like shaking in my boots right now because I had no idea if I just messed up or not. And so, the next day I wake up to go to my grandma's funeral. And so I text my other friend who just happens to be on the same bus as her, like, yo, can you make sure that she has my phone number, blah blah blah. I'm like, can you if she doesn't have it, can you just tell her what it is? And so then my friend, she tells me like, "Oh yeah, I'm sitting right next to her right now." I'm like, "What? Are you serious? Like you're sitting right next to her right now?" And after she said that, I was absolutely panicking. I was shaking in my boots, probably pissed myself a couple of times as she said that, and I had no idea what to do. So I just accepted it. I was like, "You know what? My life is over at this point. You know what? If I die, I die." So I wait a little bit longer, and then she tells me, my friend, she tells me that she talked to the girl that I liked about me. And so I was like, oh shit, what did she say? Right? And then my friend, she goes and tells me, like, she likes you, blah blah blah. She likes you. And at the time, I don't know why, but I just did not believe her at all. I have no idea what was going on in my brain, but I just did not believe her at all. And so the idiot that I was like yelling at her. I was like on text. I was like in all caps typing like, "Why would you do that? It wasn't like that." Even though it was obviously like that, and I even told her before that it was like that. And so now my friend is apologizing to me frantically, even though it wasn't her fault, and I still don't blame her for anything. And so later, I finally get a text message from my crush, and she texts me like, "Oh, hey, it's me, my crush," right? She texts me that, and then she also sends like, "I heard what my friend was saying, or she heard that she heard what our mutual friend, was saying about me to." Does that even make sense? I'm not even sure anymore. So then later on, she, after we were texting back and forth a little bit, she texted me like, "Oh, so you probably already know this by now, but I kind of like you." And so I was like, "Holy shit." And I was absolutely shaking in my boots once again, and probably pissed myself another 3 times after that. But I don't know what was going on in my head at the time. I probably jerked off one too many times that day because I told her that I did not like her, even though that was an absolute lie. I don't know what was going on. I just straight lied through my teeth, straight lied through the text. No idea why I did that. I just thought that I would it boost my ego a little further by saying that by saying that I didn't like someone who liked me back. So I just kind of half rejected her. I didn't really say that, you know, I wasn't down to date, but I also said that I didn't like her the same way, even though I most definitely did, and I definitely liked her since like the beginning of the school year, which is very stupid of me. I don't really know why. So yeah, that's how I absolutely just fumbled this girl in 7th grade. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, that's it.